excited to have a dinner speaker this evening. He's going to present a program designed to help eliminate distractions, increase productivity, help us all set clear goals. He's a member of the National Speakers Association and resides in Nashville, Tennessee, with his wife, 2 children, and what I take to be a ridiculous collection of Andy Griffith Show memorabilia. So please help me welcome Rick Roberts to the stage.
Before I get going, have a nice round of applause for everybody here at the hotel that served the meal, had it out for you. Well, I'm excited to be here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself real quick, and then we'll jump into the program. I do live in Nashville, Tennessee. How many folks have been to Nashville, Tennessee? Quite a few. Did you have a good time when you were there? Yeah. It's a pretty happening town. I moved there about 17 years ago when they still made country music. Y'all remember those days? Like real country, you know? I got a wife and a daughter, and they're big Taylor Swift fans. I got to deal with that all the time. But she's all right, but she's angry, isn't she? You ever listen to Taylor Swift? We listened to all of her CDs on a road trip recently. She's got 16 different songs about breaking up with boyfriends. Like after 16, the problem could be you. Why you got to be so mean, right? But my kids love them. I've been married for 15 years, got a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm 49 years old. So, yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. A lot of work. And recently my wife has started talking about adoption. I'm like, slow down. I don't think anybody is going to take these kids off our hands at this point. You know? Put them on Craigslist, see if you get a nibble. I don't know. Start with the little one. I barely know her. You can tell we got a lot of parents in here. That's good. Yeah, there's no limit. Go ahead and put them up. They could be 18. Put them up. Well, I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky area, tobacco farming, and one thing I can count on pretty much every week is we're going to get a heavy dose of the Andy Griffith Show. How many folks out there grew up with it like it was a family member almost, right? When I started doing speaking, I split my time between stand-up comedy and keynotes like tonight, but I promised to keep tonight a lot of fun as well. But when I started doing the programs, I thought, man, I'm going to have some through line that I can relate to. And I thought about the Andy Griffith Show. There were so many great episodes where they laughed a little bit, they did some things that were right and some wrong, but they always learned a lesson throughout. And as I look back at those episodes, a lot of the lessons they learned can be applied to business and to just day-to-day life. And I think we've got so caught up in technology and all the things it can do that we're starting to forget to do some simple things, whether it's connecting with clients, the people we work with, or just set goals that make sense for us based on where we need to go, not necessarily based on where everybody else is going. So that's kind of the reason I started doing this program. And I'll just say this up front, everything in the program today, it's pretty straightforward, common sense, but I put everything to use that I'm talking about tonight. And the first year that I did that, my business increased 32%. Now, that tells you how off track I was maybe to start with. But I've also learned a lot of things along the way from this program, and I continue to add things that I've learned throughout. So, what is the Mayberry Method? Sometimes I call it don't Barney Fife your way through life. We all know Barney Fife, usually when he had success, he backed into it sideways, right? And then he found out he had caught the robber or solved the bank robbery or whatever. We don't want to always be back into the success. We need to have a plan up front. And so we're going to cover these 3 little areas today. One, about keeping small problems small by eliminating distractions. Can I hear you guys say, nip it in the bud? All right. We're going to talk about managing the time that we do have a little bit better so we're more effective with it. Can I hear you say, don't be a goober? All right. And then we're going to talk a little bit about problem solving or serving our customers before they realize they need to be served and before it's too late and they go somewhere else. Can I hear you guys say, keep your bullet in your pocket? We know that's what he had to do because he had to shoot himself in the foot a lot, right? So when I think about distractions, we have a lot of them today. On the Andy Griffith Show, there was one fella that was constantly distracting Andy and Barney. Actually, not constantly. He was only in 3 episodes, but very memorable. Is this guy right here. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, right? What was Ernest T. famous for doing? What was his big deal? Throwing rocks. That was his thing in life. He had rocks. He named his rocks. He would bring the best ones of town. He'd chuck them through the courthouse window. And whatever Andy and Barney had planned to do that day, they had to stop, take care, and focus on Ernest T. So I like to use him as the idea of distractions. We all have different Ernest T's in our day-to-day routines, right, that pop up that we got to deal with. And when you have that many popping up in this distracted in your day, you have a lot of things go wrong. Number one thing that happens is you can't finish the task at hand. How many dollars do you think we miss out in the United States each year just by not finishing the work that we have to do? It's a bunch of dollars. Go ahead and throw out a number and we'll get there. It's higher than $3 billion. It's higher than $20 billion. It's higher than $68 billion. It's not The Price is Right, but you're doing all right in front. $650 billion of lost productivity in the workplace due to distractions and not focusing on what we're supposed to do. So that's obviously bigger than the GDP of a lot of countries that are out there. This is stuff we're just leaving on the table because we're distracted and we're not finishing. I like to start that number because it is a big one. It gets your attention. And we're that distracted, we have a lot of things happen. The result, obviously, is low satisfaction with your work, high levels of frustration. The job that you used to love, you don't love as much because you can't get to it, or you're not doing it as effectively as you used to. So, a lot of bad things happen. What are some common distractions you guys have day to day? Email for sure. What else? Yourself? You're the distraction to all these guys? We eliminated the problem. You're fired. No. My guess is they wouldn't know what to do without you, probably. Very good. Yeah. Sometimes coworkers, sometimes bosses can be distractions, if we're honest. I've had jobs where I would be at work and the boss would come over and start chewing the fat, and then 30 minutes later he'd yell at me for not working, you know? So we have to get that under control. What other things pop up day to day?
Regulations.
Phone calls? Yeah, regulations, I'm sure, with what you guys do. Constantly, you have to just put somebody in charge of that, right? Because it's constantly evolving and changing. Those are all very common distractions for different people. There were studies done about this, and the common 5 or 6 that kept coming up, some of these you hit on, some of you didn't. One was long lunch breaks. And I thought, man, who gets a lunch break anymore to start with, right? But if you do take a lunch break, don't bring back a fish sandwich to the office and heat it up in the microwave. That's going to affect everybody the rest of the afternoon right there. There's not enough Febreze on the planet to knock that out. Flirting at work, nobody said that. Nobody said that. So keep hiring average-looking people and remove the temptation. Everybody's looking and saying, I'm the one talking. So that is for some people, I assume. It came up on the list. Sometimes checking your own cell phone, not the work phone, but your own email, your own life coming through to work. Poor work environment. Sometimes you can't find the work it's alluded to because it's piled up. And then sometimes frustrations with your technology. You know, the system is being merged with another system, or it's slow, or the internet's down. Isn't that the worst? Because you're ready to go, technology's holding you back. That's not the way it should be. We should be in charge of it. So lots of different things get in our way, all kinds of distractions, and it really does add up. Texting's a big one. And not just people in offices, not just people driving cars like we see all the time. Farmers are texting now. I don't know if you see what happens when farmers text, but it's not pretty. That's going to affect your yield, I'm pretty sure, right there. But somebody was texting, completely lost track of what they're doing. I saw this the other day. A guy was going to propose to his girlfriend in a hot air balloon. The guy running the hot air balloon was texting. Look what happened. Right to the power lines. So, yeah, not good there. Shocking. Very good. Pop more than the question. That's what I was going to add to what you said right there. But yes, indeed. So that's not good. I saw this newspaper delivery guy in the delivery van was texting. This is a true picture right here. Ran right into the house. Because he could read the red letter. That's what he was supposed to do, apparently. So, funny to everybody but the guy in the house. And then I saw this, a guy was on his way actually to pick up eye drops at CVS and took it a little too far, drove all the way in. And then last but not least, my favorite guy who was texting out of control, this dude right here who's trying to deliver a bridge apparently. But there's no shortcuts to success apparently. There's a fast track to average though, isn't there? So definitely people distracted in their line of work, in their line of the day-to-day life. It's a big deal. And what happens when we're distracted a lot, we tend to start multitasking, trying to do 2 things at once. And there's been some studies on this that are pretty eye-opening. Now, a few people out there can actually do 2 things at once, but it's not as many as we think. And this first study I read about was here at the University of Utah. They had different Fortune 500 companies send in their best multitaskers at work. They're going to do some tests, figure out how they can do to other people so we could all pick up the productivity. Well, they ran a test for the whole weekend. After they got the results back, what percentage of those people do you think could actually multitask and be effective? Very close, 2.5%. 2.5% of people that were singled out, they were fooling their boss as well as themselves, right? Their boss said, this person can multitask. Well, 2.5% can do it. Another study at Stanford University did found that multitaskers are easier to distract, they lose focus faster than the average person. They're weaker at shifting from one task to another, and they're unable to effectively organize information. So they're not multitasking maybe because they set out to, but because they can't organize, they start doing two things at once. And usually when you're doing two things at once, you're getting nothing done, right? Your focus is distracted. If you can learn that early, and it took me a while to learn that, you can get things done. This is the scariest of all the research that I came upon. They found that when you do multitasking, your brain starts to rewire itself, and it reduces your cognitive capacity from that of a Harvard MBA down to that of an 8-year-old child. So you could be as smart as a Harvard guy, and then all of a sudden you start doing two things, you're just a kid. Now let's say kids go on Harvard, you're out of shape right there. So a lot of bad things. I want to help you remember this with a little phrase I call multitasking is like a mullet. Y'all remember mullets? Who had a mullet? I had one, I'll admit to it. Anybody else? And to be fair, they didn't even have a name for it back then, right? Now there's like a dozen. You got the soccer rocker, the achy breaky bad mistakey, the Canadian passport, you know what I'm talking about. The West Virginia waterfall. There's a lot of names. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a mullet family right there. I wonder if the band ever got out of the garage. So multitasking is like a mullet, right? We think it's cooler than it really is. Other people encourage you, they're getting a laugh at it. And very few people can pull it off. I mean, I searched Google for a good 20 minutes and could only find two examples. I got Ric Flair and John Bon Jovi. That's about it. Everybody else we failed miserably at the moment. So there are 2.5% of you guys out there that can do it. If we have 200 people here, I think that's about 5 people, right? So here's the thing. If you are that person and you truly know you can do multiple things, you really got to secure boundaries around your day so that people don't interact and take care of, take you off task. A friend of mine says he likes to hang out with 11 people and just do 0% because the 11 is going to cover the 100, But you want to make sure that if you can do a lot of things, you close the door and get them done so people don't disrupt you, right? Every time you're interrupted at work, they trace it back to about 5 more minutes you lost. You try to figure out where you were in your paperwork or your phone call or your email, whatever it was. It cost you 5 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the problem is the average worker is interrupted every 12 minutes. So that's your whole hour right there, right? Right back and forth. So you definitely have to set boundaries, let people know when they can and can't interrupt you. It's nice to have an open door policy, but it doesn't always serve the greater cause as well as it should. Multitasking is a big deal. Millennials who were voluntarily entered in this study were found to touch their phone 2,617 times a day. That's a lot of time not looking at your work and looking at your phone. So obviously keeping your phone away from your desk or leaving it in your car and checking it at lunch, whatever you're able to do is important. But 2,617 on average for millennials. So I don't have enough good eyesight to tap that much on the phone. 3 taps and call me later, right? Social media is definitely a big one. That's a growing piece of the disruption pie. Most social media has only been around for 7 to 9 years, and they're growing leaps and bounds. 85% of all viewing on the internet by 2024 will be video viewing, so people actively watching something on their phones. That's a big number. And these 3 take a lot of eyeballs and a lot of time. They estimate about 10%, 63 billion of that 650 billion, is just attributed to these social media things alone. Which that seems like 10% isn't much, but considering these things have only been around for a few years, that's a huge number. And it's going to keep growing unless we get it under control, right? The average time employees tracked or using this at work is 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's a pretty good chunk of your day right there you're not getting back. And the employees over 50, though, waste the least amount of time using these things, 30 minutes or less every day. Would anybody like to guess why that could be? Go ahead and say it out loud. We're all thinking. Can't see what you're doing? What else? What's that? They need more time at the bathroom to be embarrassed. Well, yeah, the studies keep saying that over 50 there's a learning curve, obviously, right? Not for everybody. But here's the interesting thing. Technology for people that are 25 and under is changing at the exact same pace it always has since they've gotten technology in their hands. For those of us that are, I'm 49, so 50 and up, it's changing a lot faster than it used to, by leaps and bounds. So it does take a little longer sometimes to figure out not only how to use stuff, or mainly for me, it's do I want to use it, right? Do I need this app on my phone? If I don't use it after I put it on there for 3 days, I delete it. Because you could add apps all day long, right? But 50 or less, or 50 years enough, use it 30 minutes or less. And I thought that was kind of mean to say, but all these polls kept saying 50 and up has a learning curve. And then something happened in my own family where it just drove this point right on home. My dad, who's a tobacco farmer, has always been since he was 7. He's 89 now and still has a crop, believe it or not, up in Kentucky. 2 years ago, we broke down as a family, so we need to get you a cell phone so we can check in on you. August, it's 100 degrees, you're cutting tobacco, we need to make sure you're okay. So he said, all right, if you're going to get me a phone, make sure you slap the internet on that thing for me. I'm like, oh, here we go. I said, what do you need that for? He said, well, I think I should be able to check the weather, because sometimes it gets worked out there for bad weather. And I might want to check a baseball game score or something. I said, all right, if that's all you need it for, we'll get you the basic package. And we got like the last of the flip phones. It was as small as we could go. So we get him that phone. A few weeks later, I'm in Tennessee, he's in Kentucky, he calls me up. He's like, Richard Dale, I'm about to fire off an email. Keep an eye out for it. I'm like, I will, just so you know, you don't have to call people right before you fire off an email. If you're going to text me later, how about a smoke signal? That'd be good. So there he was. We didn't set him up with email on purpose. He figured out a way to get it slapped on there, apparently. So a few hours later, I'm back at my computer, I checked my inbox, and the email isn't coming directly from my dad. It's asking me if I would like to follow him on Twitter. This ain't good for nobody. I couldn't even believe he figured out how to get to it from that phone, let alone set up an account, right? So now he's disproving my statement that 50 and up has a learning curve. He figured it out, sort of. I clicked through to see if he put out any tweets in the couple of weeks he had the phone, and he had been pretty busy. 116 tweets. Yeah, no followers, he just tweeting in the breeze. Just circling the globe and going right back to his phone, apparently. All capital letters, no punctuation. It's just running on like the Unabomber's manifesto. I'm like, well, this could be interesting. My dad doesn't talk a lot. He's an old, quiet farm guy kind of type. I thought, well, maybe this is his way of getting stuff out. Maybe this will be good. Maybe he's like Mark Twain. That was my hope. Like he's got these witticisms or something. Maybe that's where I get my wit from. Well, I started reading through there, and about 20 into it, I realized what's happening. It's not 116 different thoughts. It's just one big story. And the whole story is about birds. Because my dad thought Twitter was a bird watching update website. There's my dad right there. I wish I was making this up. Here's his Twitter page if you want to check him out. There's a lot of disturbing numbers on there. He's only got, he's following 3 people, still only 2 followers. It's me and the Audubon Society. And here's the reason nobody's following. I'll give you a couple samples of his tweets real quick. Blue Jays are nothing but a hassle in your face bird. Go back to Toronto, #American League. And then the bottom one I kind of like. It's better to do one thing really well than keep trying to do something perfect. #Woodpeckers Rock. And he put out that photo of the farm. That's on my dad's farm. He went to town. So, anyway, if you want to follow my dad, he's at NutHatcher401261853, which is also his social security number. If you want to log him out, the password is password. All capitals. So there you go. So as soon as he disproved my theory, he proved it right again with not knowing how to use the technology. Texting is pretty big, out of control. tweeting as well. I saw this in San Antonio in a staircase at a hotel I was doing an event at. In case of fire, exit building before tweeting about it. So I went to the front desk. I said, I'm curious. I saw the sign in the stairwell. Is that a problem around here? She goes, we've had 3 fires, and each time the fire department found out about it on Twitter before. I'm like, can you move me down from the 17th floor right now? 3 fires, there's your problem right there. Not just waiting. Get some more fire extinguishers up there. That's all I can tell you. But seriously, 3 times they found out about it on Twitter before anybody even called 911. So I don't know what to tell you on that, but it's just showing you how much people are into this and have disconnected with reality. You know, they always say social media is like the weapons of mass destruction. There's a lot of different ones going on. They keep coming online with more and more, and they all try to acquire each other. A lot of them are publicly traded now. Facebook's kind of in a lot of trouble with how much information they've let out of the bag with the analytics company that they send stuff out to and research. But these are the big 3. My goal is one day is to have these 3 eat each other up and merge together so I can check one place and see anything that's interesting instead of trying to track it down 3 different places. And if they do that, they'll call it utwitface.com. If you ever see that, that was me. I'm working on it. But there is a lot of focus on these things, and the reality is, we all check these things, or at least 1 or 2 of them, right? I do too. What I've learned from doing this the past few years is if I wait till later in the day, everybody else does all the prioritizing for me. If somebody likes or shares it, it hits the algorithm a different way and it shows up higher in my feed. If I'm checking all day long, I'm doing that busy work for somebody else. So if you can wait to the end of the day, pull it up, you'll see anything that anybody commented on at all. So if you're able to do that, one way to get some time back. On the flip side, kids start young with technology. That's my little girl there. She just turned 5. I said, so what do you want for your 5th birthday? This is what she led off with. She goes, I need to get an iPad Air 64 gigabytes with a built-in Wi-Fi plan. I'm like, you need to slow down. I said, you don't get one of them things till I do, all right? She said, how about an iPhone? I'm like, that costs even more, and you don't need an iPhone. Who you calling, the Justin Bieber support line or something? You don't need an iPhone. I said, you should use your imagination while you still got one. Go outside. Play with a stick for a couple of hours, right? Get a wireless stick and see how that works out. 64 hickory nuts or something like that. So she did. She went outside, got a stick. 5 minutes later, poked herself in the face. We had to get her an eye patch. That was a long way to go for that one, wasn't it? But they do start young, so you got to set boundaries. If you hire younger people, you have to be aware that they're more in tune with it and it's a bigger part of their day and figure out how you work around that. But if you don't, it definitely gets in the way. Real quickly, just to kind of recap that first section. You're going to have a time for your distractions. We all know what they are. You name some of them. If you're able to put those at a specific time where you address them on your terms, that's the way to get in control of it. Email is just somebody else's emergency popping in your inbox, so make sure you check it when you're able to, when your work is done. You don't want your distraction to become somebody else's. And that's funny that even companies are so aware of this now. March Madness is going on. Does anybody use the CBS app? The one to check so they've got an app, right? And you can watch any of the games that are on, and as soon as your boss walks by, you hit what? The boss button. And a spreadsheet pops up, makes it look like you're doing some work. So CBS knows you're not going to get the eyeballs unless they give you a way to get out. I think we just encourage everybody to do something Monday they shouldn't do. But anyway. And then last, and simply, have a non-work email that you use for all the stuff that you opt into so it doesn't come through your normal day. And turn that thing off when you don't need it. All right, to find out who's our big Mayberry fans and people who watch the show in the audience, I like to give away some prizes based on some trivia questions. So if you know the answer to this first one, raise your hand real quickly and make a noise when you raise it so I see it. Who were Barney Fife's 2 girlfriends on the show? Does anybody know both of them? Let's see, Thelma Lou, you must know the other one. Who said Juanita? Right over there. Juanita's the right answer. Have a nice round of applause. Let's go to Now, people have a hard time guessing that one because you never saw her on the show. He would talk to her on the phone. She worked at the diner.
Oh, she worked at the
For bonus points, does anybody know the poem that he read to her over the phone when he called her up? Does anybody want to give me a couple lines? I think you sort of remember. I'll give it for you. So he basically is talking to her on the phone, thinks nobody's in the courthouse, but Andy walked in behind him. He's like, hey, Juanita wrote you a poem. Are you sitting down? You might want to be sitting down for this. So she's sitting there like, sweet, sweet Juanita, from your head down to your feet. Sweet Juanita. Then Andy walks in, he freaks out. So Andy's like, is that all you got? He's like, well, pretty much covers everything head to toe. So there you go. So I'll make sure I see you after the program. I got some CDs to give away. Double little Juanita. All right. Next little section is about managing our time a little bit. When I go back and watch the DVDs of all these Andy Griffith shows, the one guy who had promised to help you but never could was Goober. And I loved Goober. I loved all the people on the show, but Goober would agree to do something and then it would backfire and it would set you further back than where you were when you asked for help. And we all know people like that. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way not to ask that person to help you. But Goober was that way in the show. One of my favorite episodes was when he took the car apart from Wally's garage and put it back together in the courthouse so he could answer phones like Andy asked him to. And every time the phone rang, he was revving the engine, never heard the phone ring at all. Then Andy came back early thinking something was wrong and nobody was there. So obviously doing two things at once, sometimes you get nothing done. But I did like the episode. In fact, if you remember the episode, Floyd the barber ended up buying the car after he heard how good he got it running. And he bought it from Gilly Walker after the carburetor was fixed. Anyway, I know too much about Mayberry. Let's move on. So a lot of times we are doing two things at once. We're not managing our time because we don't have a plan at all. You guys are great at planning. I mean, that's the core of everything you do. It needs a plan to be effective and to figure out if it worked, if it didn't, how to reiterate. But a lot of people don't. 50% of Americans admit to buying impulse items at the grocery store. Let me do my own survey. How many folks in here have bought an impulse item at the grocery store? Right? That's my goal. If my wife drags me into Publix, I'm going to throw stuff in the cart just she almost makes me sit in the truck, I'm going to try a different kind of beef jerky this week, I think the other half had their mouth full of onions and couldn't answer. That's why they 50%. 75% of Americans admit to making rash decisions. How many folks out there ever made a rash decision? All of us, right? Good news is 100% of rash decisions completely avoidable just by taking some time and thinking things through ahead of time, which often we don't make time for because we think it takes too much time, but evidence shows otherwise, Another example of my parents here, I'll pick on me fair today too, but my parents, my mom especially, will be distracted by somebody else's emergency and make it her own. I don't know if y'all have parents like that or maybe family members, but my dad was out working in the field one day. The guy stops by my mom's and dad's house and corners my mom at the front porch and says, I think you need to get a home security system. You seen all this stuff going on in the news, people being shot and all this stuff? And they live miles away from the town and, a couple, let's say 15 acres from the next neighbor. There's no trouble way back on my parents' farm. But this guy talks my mom into this hysteria to where she signs up for a Brinks deal for like $59 a month. 2 years can't get out of it kind of deal. So yeah, my dad found out about that and almost shot that guy pretty much. But she did all this because she didn't wake up that day to buy a home security system. Somebody got in her head about it. She didn't have a plan. So I found out about this. I said, well, why do you want that security system in the first place? Her first response was, well, now all the cool stuff in our home is going to be safe. I had the heart to break it to her. I'm like, unless they're selling doilies on eBay, it ain't going on around at your house right now. If somebody broke down the door, they'd probably turn a gun on themselves for picking this house. It's not a bad house, but it hasn't changed since I grew up. They've been in the same ranch house since 1965. I said, somebody would think they got inside the 70s museum when they knock down your door. Then they trip over the beanbag chair, hit the couch, and slide off the plastic. They came with the couch. They hit the wall, big orange picture of yarn and nails come right down on top of them. My dad would be taking pictures to tweet later. Come on, Jill. I said, even if somebody broke in your house, they couldn't take your cereal. They had to bring 8 more guys in a pickup truck and a forklift. Yeah, remember how big those cereals were? 6 foot wide, no joking, right? Looked like wood made out of plastic and heavier than concrete. Think wood y'all had green or red or gold. Velour speakers, 3 feet apart. I looked at cereal, looked at my mom, said, if somebody breaks in the house, just hide in that middle compartment and wait for them to go away. Pop out with an Oak Ridge Boys 8-track tape. Take that. Giddy up, boom, bop, bow, bow. This house is protected by Elvira. But she got totally sidetracked by somebody else's deal, and now she's in it for almost $60 a month, So you got to have a plan. At least don't let someone else's plan overtake your lack of a plan, And having a plan saves you time. I used to think it cost me time, so I had to stop and think. And boy, that's the worst thing you can ever do, right? My wife was good at pointing out that I needed to do that more. Every minute you invest in planning saves you at least 10 minutes in the execution of that plan. And I thought about that. I said, where does that apply to me? Well, I've had 2 houses. I remember the first house I got, I had to build a deck on the back of it. And I thought I knew how to build a deck. I got a pen and paper out, and I made a little sketch and drew it. And went to Lowe's, and I went to Lowe's, and I went to Lowe's. Probably 30 trips at least. I mean, I didn't have enough screws. Didn't even square it up right. There's 3 extra inches on the end of it, you know. The second time I built a deck, I said, I'm going to take a day if I need it and go out here and sit and figure this thing out. The second deck, I made a few extra trips, but not 20. And I seriously made 20. So I saw the value in investing some time up front. I see that with other things, but that was an example I thought about. My dad always said, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, and that makes sense to me. Here's some examples of people that definitely failed to plan. Oops, I'll go back to that one so y'all can figure out what's wrong in that picture. I'm not even sure what the issue is in that house right now. There's a few different things going on right now. Here's one that's more disturbing, I think. Some people are so linear they can't step away from it. This one, the guy got his man cave figured out, but he didn't have a ladder big enough to get in there. But don't worry, he figured it out. He got his buddies to come along. That's the kind of place I like to hang out at, by the way. I'm not judging. If you've ever bought a Snuggie for somebody, you did not have a plan. It was the 23rd of December and you're running out of days to buy a gift. My uncle is the king of getting bad. I don't think it's wrong to say something. I'm trying to be careful. I know it's the thought that counts when you get somebody a gift. I know that. But some people need to think longer before they get you something. Like, you ever got something so weird you can't rewrap it and give it away? You're stuck. Last year, my uncle for Christmas got everybody a pair of microwavable slippers. Slippers you heat up in the microwave before you put it on your feet. 30 seconds there, an hour on your feet, good to go. That's good for you, and too bad for the next guy to use that microwave oven right there. These are real things. Yeah. Can you imagine? Like, man, these nachos got a kick. You're one step ahead of me. Man, that's a real product. They didn't think that through. That's why it's in the discount bin at Target or wherever. So you need to have a plan, right? When I went to school, the one thing I remember, probably more than anything else, because my professor spent a lot of time on it, was this thing called the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. Y'all are probably familiar with that, right? So in short, it says 20% of your focused effort can generate 80% of your results. And if you think about that, the couple hours where you're really keyed in at work, you got your coffee going, no distractions, you can knock out a lot. But then it takes the remaining time to finish the rest of your task. And it shows up in different places. Also in fundraising, if you're on the board of any fundraising or nonprofit, generally 20% of your donors can generate 80% of your goal. The people have been with you for a while, maybe they're a little older, they see the value in it. But it takes a lot of effort to close that gap with that last 20%. Other examples, 20% of the people in USA earn 80% of the money. 80% of crimes are committed by 20% of the criminals, repeat offenders that get back out there and do it again. And 20% of the healthcare resources are eaten up by, 80% is just by 20% of people. So 80% of our healthcare is being, right, to 20. That's why it's such a logjam, and that's always going to be the case. Once you have an issue, you usually have another issue, and then something goes from there. So the healthy people are keeping it afloat, but we definitely need to help those that can't do it. If you're married, you understand the Pareto principle. I'm just ballparking this, but I think 20% of the decisions are made by the husband. Maybe less, maybe more, depending on your situation. 80%, at least, of the important decisions are made by the wife. And if you want to live a healthy life, 100 times out of 100, the wife is correct. Just let her know that right now. You live a long time, right? Some guys don't know this, and they're on their 17th wife, That's a different world right there. But I watch, I'm in the age group now where I love the American Picture Show. Anybody else like watching the American Picture? That's I'm getting ready to go to bed. I'm going to just relax, not have to think about nothing, and enjoy somebody else's junk for a while. But every episode, it seems, they come across a car in the barn or the garage that looks something like this. And the guys had it there since the car was basically new, 50 years, 60 years. And they're going to get to it when? One day, eventually, someday. All these things, all these dates that aren't actually a plan, aren't actually on the calendar. They don't make a decision about that vehicle until 2 guys pull up and ask if they want to sell it. And even though they have other offers, these guys know how to get the thing back on the road. And that's when they start to make the decision. Otherwise, they've been there for another 20 years till the next generation had to deal with it, So there's a law called Parkinson's Law. It basically says work will expand to fill the allotted time for completion, right? So if you don't set a time, it will keep taking up all your time and not getting done. So when you delegate authority and have somebody else help you out, you still need to set a deadline for them so that there is something to shoot for. They may miss it, but without it, there's no chance of it, right? And sometimes we do that for ourselves. We're going to get to something one day. We make our New Year's resolutions, and usually 2 of those resolutions were on our list last year. We didn't get around to it. And that's okay. Take them off your list. They're not something you're really gung-ho about. But when you want to finish something, you definitely have to have an end goal in sight for it. I think Uber would like to work on that car there. Even big companies, BP, sometimes they have problems, big problems, because they didn't have the time in advance to focus on what could happen if they went wrong. Toyota, another big company, you think they have the resources and time, but sometimes they don't allocate the correct amount of time for it. And some things go wrong, and they're getting caught behind the 8 ball because they didn't plan ahead of time for what could happen. A lot of people don't like to make a plan because they have reasons and excuses not to. A big one is people are going to wait till the plan's perfect. And if you wait for that, you'll never get it done, right? Everybody here knows you have to figure out something and then figure out what went wrong and make it better and work it as it goes. You have to resist perfectionism and set realistic goals. Sometimes we have the best intentions, some great goals. The timeline's not realistic at all. We don't build in time for emergencies, accidents, or a learning curve, and then we get frustrated at ourselves. But we're the one that set the deadline if we did. I like these 2 quotes to help us remember that. Have no fear of perfection, you'll never reach it. This is one of my favorite artists, Salvador Dali. And I think he perfected that mustache, though. He knocked that sucker out of the park. And then this one, I'll see if you guys can remember who said this. A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. Does anybody know who said that? Yeah, General George S. Patton said that. And that's true. If you wait till it's perfect, you're not going to get around to it. So, it's better to get something done and fix 1 or 2 little things that went wrong. My wife wanted to marry a guy that looks like George Clooney. She got a guy that looks like Barney Fife. But she's done looking for guys. Done's better than perfect. Sometimes you think you've got a good plan, but you didn't run it by anybody. That was me quite often. I've been married for 15 years, so I'm still learning a lot of things in this process. Who's been married the longest in this bunch? Anybody more than 30 years? Let's start there. 30? That's quite a few. 35? Keep them up.
Did you add the 2 together?
2 marriages? That's called the 50-50 rule right there, where you lose half your stuff. So about 40 years. Anybody 40 years? 45 by chance? Anybody? How long for you back there, sir? How many years altogether?
50 years, April 20.
Oh my goodness. Anybody out there be 50? Well done, sir. 50 years. So you know stuff I haven't even found out that I need to know yet. It's true, right? Here's what I learned recently. My wife wants me to communicate more, but she does not want me to talk. Like I said, well, I want you to listen to what I'm going to say, but please don't hear it. I said, what do you mean by that? And she rattled off a bunch of things. But she made me remember in this situation that sometimes I don't think ahead and don't take her input into consideration. I don't communicate what I'm thinking. The first time it happened was when I went to propose to her. I didn't ask her what her ring size was. I didn't want her to get any idea what I was up to because I wasn't sure I was going to actually propose. I didn't know if I had the guts to do it. But I had to get a ring. I didn't know what ring size she was. I thought they were small, medium, and large the first time I went to the jewelry store. I didn't know. So I figured I got to figure this out without her knowing. So around Thanksgiving that year, I had her trace her hand on a piece of paper and make me a turkey hand drawing for my refrigerator for Thanksgiving. She didn't know what I was up to. I took that down to the jewelry store for those after Thanksgiving Day sales. And that guy looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. So you gonna marry Sasquatch or what? That's a huge hand right there. I said, can't you ballpark the ring size for the turkey hand drawing? He said, do you even listen to the words that come out of your head? I said, you got me. I said, well, I bet you've got some tricks of the trade. How can I do this without her knowing? He goes, it's pretty easy. Next time you pick her up for a date, see if you can sneak into her room when she's not looking and get a ring off her dresser. She doesn't wear it that much, and bring it down here before she misses it. I'll size it up for you. I'm like, all right. I knew I could do that because every time, especially back then when I went to pick her up, she'd spend like an extra 10 minutes in the bathroom trying to get one eyebrow to settle down. Like she'd have one that would come at you, like a balloon popper, like come right. And she'd like spray it and mash down on it, and then you'd hear ping, pop right back out. So I was in the kitchen, I heard 2 things. I'm like, this is my chance right here. So I go in and get her ring, get back out before she knows what I'm up to. Next day I take the ring down to him, and he had a piece of rebar in the back. He slid the ring on it, told me the ring size. I said, all right, give me an engagement ring and a wedding band and 2 separate receipts just in case it don't work out. Because if she ran off, she had a pretty sister, so I wasn't completely out of the family. A lot of good hunting property in Arkansas, that's all I'm saying. Obviously it worked out for me, I don't know about her, but I went to propose to her about a month later, Christmas morning. I get down on my knee in front of her whole family, and apparently I had gotten a toe ring by accident off of that dresser top. It took us 20 minutes to figure it out. You ever seen a princess cut toe ring? She didn't complain, she just put on a flip-flop and hauled on down the aisle. Let's go. Do you take this man? I reckon. Hurry up. So maybe you just wasn't up right at all, I think. So have a plan. Resist perfectionism, because you're probably not going to reach it the first time around anyway. And set a deadline so you knock it out and it gets taken care of. All right, time for another trivia question. This one, a little harder. So I'll help you with it if you need some help. But does anybody know what Barney Fife got his parents for an anniversary gift? If you know, raise your hand. Anybody? I'll give you this clue. It's something for their house. A casserole, bigger than a casserole. They would last longer. An oven, bigger than an oven. Bigger than a washing machine, but may contain water. Bigger than a fridge. Not a pool, but it would be in ground outside the house. Septic tank. Which one of y'all got it? You both. It's another one of those things where you never saw his parents, but they were sitting on the front porch at the end of one episode, and Andy goes, "What did you end up getting your parents for the anniversary gift?" And old Barney's like, "I got her a septic tank." Like, why'd you get her a septic tank? Something they need and they won't take back to the store. There you go. So, there you go. All right, we're in the home stretch here. We've got to talk a little bit about taking care of problems, maybe when you don't even have to, and troubleshooting things to help other people out when you should. Otherwise, keeping your bullet in your pocket and thinking things a little bit deeper. And when I think about people in the Andy Griffith Show, Aunt B was in most episodes. Not a lot of them were focused on her. She got mad about that, and they added some more later on. But one of my favorite episodes, a new butcher opened up a shop in town, and she went and bought a whole side of beef, right, for a good deal. She got the whole side of beef back home, and then what happened? The freezer did not work at all. It shook, almost knocked Opie off the porch. And Andy wants her to call who to fix it? Call the man, right? Call the man, fix it, Aunt B. And she's afraid to do it because it's going to cost too much, whatever. The day is ending. She's got a whole side of beef that's starting to thaw out a little bit. And so she has nowhere to put it. She starts putting it all on one of those Red Ryder wagons or whatever Opie had and took it back into town. A bunch of dogs following, if you remember the episode. Gets to town and the butcher she bought it from is closed. He closed at 4 o'clock. Uh-oh. The only other guy in town with a big freezer is the butcher she didn't buy it from, who she'd been going to since she got to Mayberry. Uh-oh, right. So she goes in to see this guy. If we're all honest, and we're that guy, and she brings in a side of beef that she bought from the new guy who just opened up today, we had done nothing wrong to her, but she jumped ship that quickly, and she asked us to put that food away in our freezer. What would you say? Most of us say no, right? We would automatically say no. Right when she came in the door, we'd be thinking no. But because it's Andy Griffith Show, it's Mayberry, this guy had a conscience and thought, maybe if I help her out, I'll win her business back. And he basically said that in the episode. I wish you'd have bought the beef for me, but I guess now the only place we can put it is in my freezer. I'll put it in there, I'll drop it off at your house when you get your freezer working. Maybe one day I'll win back your business. And man, when do you think you won back your business? Right there, right? I mean, so many people take years, sometimes decades, sometimes never, to help somebody out. This guy did it immediately. He thought about it, kept his bullet in his pocket, didn't fire off the first thing in his mind, and helped her out. And there's lots of times that we can help people out, but maybe we don't have to. Maybe the problem is somewhere else, but we're able to help them out. And you got to pick and choose those with your ability and your time, but there are places to do that. And when you have clients and customers that you want to have for a long time, you have to keep developing those relationships. And it's not always about serving them and then seeing them again next year. It's about following up with them and making sure things are good before a problem arises, right? The first time I thought about this, I've got a dentist in Nashville, Tennessee. When I moved there 17 years ago, my wife took a job, and She asked everybody there, who's a good dentist to go to? And a lot of people kept coming back with this guy. I was like, really? Because this guy was 45 minutes from my house on the other side of Nashville. Probably would pass 50 dentist offices at least on the way to his. I'm like, this guy? She's like, yeah, let's go check him out. So we go get our cleanings, get our initial consultation, whatever you call it. And the next morning, I get a phone call, 8 o'clock. It's the dentist that owns the entire practice calling to see if I was okay. I said, yeah, everything was cool, it's just a cleaning. He goes, well, sometimes I get in there messing around and people get a little flare-up the next day or they're irritated and it turns into a bigger problem. And I think if I don't call, sometimes they won't call me. So I just wanted to make sure. And by the way, we enjoyed having you in. Hope to see you again in 6 months. I told my wife, I said, that's pretty good. That guy calls first-time patients and follows up with them. Well, 6 months later, I go in for another cleaning. Next morning, he calls me again. It's not just first-time patients. It's every day. He sets aside the first hour of his day to call everybody that came through his doors the previous day. And that just blew my mind. And it happened for years and years. You know, a few years ago when I started doing this program, I asked him, I said, I'm thinking about talking about you. Is that okay? He's like, well, I don't like people talking about me, but if you need to. I said, I need to ask you, how do you have time to do that? And, you know, he started in the basement of a building. He's all 4 floors and looking to buy the building next door now in his 40 years. So he basically said, how do I not have time to do that? And he told me that story. We started out in the basement, and we just found if we treated people right, and sometimes we solved problems before they happened. When they came back in the next day, we took care of it before they needed a root canal, before they needed a crown. And we're saving our patients money, and we're just growing the business that way. And I'm like, man, that's pretty good. You know, I've been impressed if this front office person did it, but the fact he does it, really impressive. And that's what grew it to the entire building, plus the building next door here pretty soon. So, lucky for me, his son's taken over for him, and he's kind of dialing things back, but his son's got the same servant leadership type thing where he's out there to help you first, you know, before he's taking care of himself. So, good example there. It also kind of drives home the point that, you know, he was serving me above and beyond the expectations when I least expected it. And that's something that I've tried to incorporate in all the things I do now, teach my kids. But business-wise, if we're not taking care of people, if we're procrastinating something, competition has the opportunity to jump in, right? Competition loves procrastination. They might take a client or a customer away from you without doing any advertising, any direct mail, any phone calls, just because you weren't taking care of them to their satisfaction. And you don't know that unless you're calling to follow up. In fact, a couple of numbers here I'll share with you that are a little staggering, I think. The first one is 12-to-1 ratio. It takes 12 positive interactions with the customer to erase 1 negative one. So think about that for a second, just in your own day-to-day life. You go to a restaurant, you don't get served right, or don't get the meal you ordered, or whatever. Don't get served at all. You're waiting in the lobby of Olive Garden for 15 minutes because they're busy and they don't know how to take care of the people off, whatever it might be. 12 times you got to interact again with them positively to erase that one. If you only meet with somebody once a year, you may not ever have that second chance, right? The other numbers that came up that were pretty staggering to me was 5 years ago, 59% of people surveyed said they had taken their business to a new place without informing the last place why they left because they thought they weren't being taken care of correctly. 59% went somewhere else and picked up a new person to do their thing. Last year, that number was up to 86%. That's a huge jump in 5 years. Why do you think that could be?
Instant supply.
The internet, yeah, we want things done now, but we also have a way to communicate with people when we're angry now. We didn't have as much 5 years ago, even 10 years ago, right? For example, last summer, I was pretty busy last summer. I usually change my own oil, but it gotten a few thousand miles past where I normally go. And so I pulled into a Jiffy Lube. A couple of high school kids in there for their summer job. There's nobody in there. They're open. They've been open for an hour. The doors are closed. They're clear. I can see through. They look up. They see me. They go right back down to their phones. I'm like, I said, all right, I'll give them a couple minutes, maybe. 5 minutes goes by, 7 minutes. I'm like, this is an experiment now. How long is this going to take? Well, while I was waiting, I didn't plan on it, but I hopped on Facebook and took a picture and said, hey, I'm here, waiting to get an oil change, but there seems to be a delay. Where else can I go on Lebanon Road and get an oil change? Within minutes, people sent me different places that had deals going on. One guy forwarded me a Groupon for Firestone where I could get 2 oil changes for $19.99 total, so less than $10 each. I'm like, all right, download that. Look back in, there's still 17 minutes. I know. Now, this was, I would have, normally would have been gone in 30 seconds, but I had to figure this out. So they finally opened up the door, waved me in. He goes, hey man, I'm glad you're here today. I'm like, are you? Seriously. I said, how long have you been in here? He goes, well, we just noticed you a second ago. I said, well, I noticed you noticed me about 17 minutes ago. I said, I was going to get an oil change today, and I probably could have been done with my oil change and already on to somewhere else. But you guys didn't take care of it. I said, and I really was on the line. Do I call the manager and say these guys are goofing off, or do I let it go? And I thought back, well, when I was a teenager, I did a lot of worse probably stuff. And I said, listen, if y'all want the summer job next year, you need to get people in here. We're also going to be going somewhere else. And I drove off, but it really drove home the fact that I'm part of that percentage now. I'm part of that 86% that would rather take my business somewhere else. At least I let them know why I left. They probably won't tell their, I'm sure they won't tell their manager that I left. They don't get the message. But we have the means now to find ways to be served. You know, it's not just places like Jiffy Lube and stuff like that. It's all over the place. In fact, there's a lot of different companies that are serving people because they weren't served before. If you hear a complaint, it's natural to get defensive automatically. But a complaint is truly just an invitation to innovate and solve a problem. That's all it really is. So don't take it personally, set yourself aside from it, and do what other companies have learned how to do. I'm a huge Cracker Barrel fan. Anybody else Cracker Barrel people? All right, now who's just the breakfast at Cracker Barrel no matter what time of day? That's me. Uncle Herschel's favorite or Sunrise Singular? Uncle Herschel's, right? I love it. In fact, I almost died one time at Cracker Barrel. I did. I was sitting there and the tornado siren went off. And I started looking for a safe place to hide. Can you pick a more unsafe restaurant to be in? You ever look at the walls and ceilings? Look at hose, pitchforks, anvils. It is. It's like Redneck Twister and I'm out of circles, you know what I mean? It's like a hillbilly matrix. That's what it's like, you know? Stuff's flying all around. Golf teams are coming at you 90 miles an hour. But I live in a county outside of Nashville, Wilson County, where Cracker Barrel is headquartered in Lebanon, close to where I'm at. And I got stock in them. I've loved them since I was a kid, and I always follow what they're doing. But the biggest problem Cracker Barrel has with people who already go there is a lot of them try to go there Sunday at noon, or Saturday at noon. They get really busy at certain times, and they're kind of laid back the rest of the day. And so they started interviewing their customers, finding out how can we serve you better. That was the number one thing. We love your food. We don't always have an hour to get it. And so I don't know if you guys have been to one yet, but they have a new store now called the Holler and Dash Biscuit House. Do y'all know about the Holler and Dash? So they're rolling them out slowly, trying to learn as they go. But this is a place you walk in. They take your order as you walk in on an iPad. 7 steps later, they take your credit card. Within 12 minutes, you get your meal. You can eat it or take it to go. It's like a $12 biscuit house. Not everybody's into that kind of thing. But if you like their food and the comfort of it, but you got somewhere to be, they found a way to serve you. So they listen to their customers, find a different way to serve them, and they're doing it. When I was a young man, many years ago, if I wanted to go out on a date night and get a movie with my girl, we had to roll up to Blockbuster. Y'all remember Blockbuster? Who's my age enough? Yeah. There was other mom and pop places around, but Blockbuster had the first release of new movies, and then they had the first DVDs when those came out. And Blockbuster made a lot of money, but it wasn't just from the $5 for the rental. Where'd they really make their money at? Yeah, people still angry, right? Yeah. They would charge you $5 the next day if you forgot to bring it in. If you left town on vacation for 2 weeks and forgot, you could have actually hired the cast of the movie to come back and perform it for you in the backyard. Not too far off, but that's where they made their money. They were abusing their customers, and that was basically their business model. They didn't care if you brought it back or not because they were making $5 the next day without anybody or any employee being involved. In a way, it was genius, but it was sinister at the same time. Well, because they were a little, procrastinating, finding a way to serve their clients better, customers better, other people found ways to step in. In fact, Blockbuster went from a grand total of 9,000 stores at their peak to only 10 stores today. And most of those stores, 8 of them, are in Alaska because they don't have heavy enough bandwidth to get Netflix to the house without breaking down. So when that problem gets solved, they'll have less than 10. But Alaska's got 8 of them now. Who serves us movies now, right and left? Netflix definitely is doing great. They were the first one to disrupt the technology, and they offered you a DVD, and you set up the list of movies you wanted to see, and they would send you the next one when you sent the one back. There was no hurry. You paid a monthly fee. You could watch as much as you wanted. And now you can obviously get it to your Xbox, to your phone, to your PlayStation. There's all kinds of ways to get your movies. But they saw a way to serve customers and not abuse them. And that was what really made their growth go. It used to be if you landed somewhere, you could rent a car for a week, or you could get a taxi or a cab. And now a lot of people do what? They do it. How many folks out there have taken an Uber? I'm just always curious because the numbers keep growing. Anybody had a horrific Uber experience? I've had one. Have you had one?
Yeah, me and someone else in here. Who is it? Come on. There you are.
So they're not exempt, right? But the numbers are, the ratio is much better. with taxis, people, you knew you were getting ripped off because you knew where you were going sometimes when the cab driver didn't, and he would take the long way on purpose to run up the tax. All those things played into Uber's existence. And, for better or for worse, we have that option now. And usually, for now, it's about half the price of a cab until they run the cabs out of business, and then they'll probably go back to where the cabs were. And they're delivering food and all that kind of stuff now. So they found a way to serve people above and beyond where they weren't getting served before. And I live way outside of Nashville. We don't have Uber everywhere we've got, where I'm at. But fortunately, we've got Uber, and he'll pick you up. You got to call him before 9 p.m. or else you're out of luck, but he'll pick you up. So, lots of different ways you can serve people and help out. And just real quickly, thinking beyond your current circumstances and what's normal, and for when things don't go well, tornadoes, flooding, there's lots of opportunities to serve your clients and people sometimes that they don't expect. I live in Nashville where we had the flood a while back, and Auburn Hotel was flooded out. Y'all probably been to Auburn for a conference, I'd imagine, or visiting. Flooded it out. They had to get people out of the building, all this stuff, and the whole time they were doing that, they didn't have anybody calling their next conference and their next convention, and the people that were coming in tomorrow. Obviously they had to focus on the people there, but they never thought what we do in case. And all kinds of companies and conventions and conferences went somewhere else before Aubrey Lane could get a phone call out to them and redirect them to somewhere else or help them out. Lots of examples I can go into about that, but just think worst case scenario for the different people that you serve and find ways that you can help them out. Another thing that happened that was really cool when the flood happened in Nashville was Chick-fil-A was like 2 days away from rolling out a spicy chicken sandwich. They decided instead of making a big promotion about it, they would just follow all the Red Cross trucks into every neighborhood that was affected and just give it away to anybody who was working or displaced. And they just serve people, without asking anything in return. They just help people out. So always good to be thinking about that on the end. And I know I've covered a lot of ground today. Like I said up front, it's going to be some common sense things, but hopefully some things you can dial back in. You can't do everything right all the time. So I'm going to take a little pressure off at the end and just point the finger at myself for a second. A few years ago, driving across Kansas. Anybody ever drive across Kansas? Anybody from Kansas? Anybody? Yeah, Kansas. At that point, I'd only been there a few times, but I was going to drive all the way across. And have you ever driven all the way across? Yeah, there's not a lot to look at sometimes. That tornado from the Wizard of Oz took a lot of stuff away, didn't it? I didn't know you had to bring your own people, basically. Sometimes you go counting, there's only 2 guys, And I knew it was going to be flat in some parts, the middle all the way across to Denver, but I didn't know that the highway patrol knew how flat it was going to be. They have to get sneaky. They don't have anything to hide behind. So you start driving Mustangs and Trans Ams and Camaros. Sometimes they're pulling a bass boat, and that's just cheating right there. But they have to do that. If they drove a marked car, you get spotted 6 or 7 hours away. So you got time. Well, I didn't know all this. I'm in the right lane. I'm actually doing the right speed for once, and a guy goes flying by me in a Trans Am. He's a blur. I'm like, all right. I get right behind him for a couple 100 miles. I thought he had a radar detector. He had the radar. I did not detect it. So I started trying to catch up to the guy, and I mean trying. At the time, I still had my, I call it my Dave Ramsey truck. Y'all know who Dave Ramsey is? He said, drive it till it blows up and then get something 2 years old. Well, I bought it 2 years old and driven it until about a year ago. It was my 1996 3 out of 4 cylinder Isuzu pickup truck with a camper top on the back. Yeah, that's a woman gunner right there, ain't it, ladies? So I'm chugging along in that. It takes me about a half hour to catch up to this guy. Then he started slowing down. Then he would speed off. Then he'd slow back down. Then he started swerving and kicking up gravel. I'm like, this guy has fallen asleep behind the wheel. I should try to get his attention and see if he's okay. Yeah, you ever been so stupid you pulled the cops over? Anybody else? Talk about your paperwork. Whew. I don't even know how to pull him over. I started flipping my high beam at him for a little while, just the one high beam I got running, and roll down the window. I'm like, woo! Must have swallowed 13 skeeters before he pulled over. He pulls over, so I pull over behind him. He doesn't get out of his car, so I walk up to his window. I just start pounding on his window. Meanwhile, he's been loading the revolver on the other side. Then he cracks the window and I see who he is. And I've got zero game plan. I'm like, I don't know what to do. But then I start thinking, maybe he cracked up at some Barney Fife. Maybe I'll try to arrest him before he arrests me. Get him for reckless driving. I just walk up there and I'm like, hey! Would you mind rolling down low and roll her down? Want to get out of the vehicle there, buddy? You just keep on getting out, don't you? You don't want to know why I pulled you over? Because I'm an idiot. I thought I was going to prison right there. He's like, you're so weird, I'll drop you off wherever you want to go. I wish. He threw me in the backseat of that squad car. He was mad. He said, first off, do you even know how fast you were going back there? I said, I don't. My speedometer has been broke since 05, I think. He said, I was pacing you at one point. You were hitting about 104 miles an hour. What do you got to say about that? I said, that is pretty good. 3 out of 4 cylinders through the pickup. I say, print that out, right? That's going to help me with my trading value. Carfax don't matter. Just send it to him. Then he says, what brought you out here to Kansas in the first place? I see you've got Tennessee license plates. I said, well, I was out here working, but I'm headed back home. He said, what kind of work brought you out here? And that particular time I was doing 3 fundraisers for the March of Dimes across Kansas, just doing a comedy show. So I said, well, I'm a comedian, I was doing a comedy show. He's like, comedian? I've been looking at your name here for 10 minutes, it don't ring a bell at all. You must not be a very good one. He said, you ever been on Letterman or Leno or something like that? What do you say? I'm like, no! You ever been on Cops? That'll be on in a few weeks if you want to see it again. I hope you guys had a little fun tonight, reconnecting with the Andy Griffith Show, reconnecting with the common sense that got you guys where you're here, and hopefully you dial back some of the distractions and get focused on the stuff that really matters. The interactions you guys have here at the conferences are important, obviously, and spend that time face to face and just enjoy it while you're here. Thanks again. My name's Rick Roberts. Y'all have a great evening. Take care.